days and days in the dark, waiting for the light that used to be in my heart. Now I'm all out of feelings, so much for happy endings.
My name's Dina, this is Reading Writing, and I'm here with author Colleen Nelson to talk about her new book, Finding Hope. Welcome.
Hi, Dina. Thanks.
So can you just give us a little bit of an idea of Hope, the main character of the book, and what her situation is?
Sure. So Hope actually grows up in a small town. She has an older brother who is sort of the star hockey player of the town, but Hope's never really felt a part of the community in the way that she wants to. So she gets the chance to go to a boarding school in the city, and she thinks this is going to be her opportunity to kind of break free of what's going on for her brother. Unfortunately, when she gets to the boarding school, things don't go as planned, and she gets immersed in some cyberbullying and some other unfortunate circumstances that she has to find her way through.
And so Hope is the main character, and she's the one working through this, but her brother plays a huge role in this and how he affects her relationships due to an addiction.
Yeah, so actually the original manuscript didn't have a brother. It was just Hope's story. But as I was going through the editing process, I realized that she needed a counterpoint, like somebody that had kind of pushed her to leave the town. So that's when Eric came into being, and I needed something that made Eric such a problem for her life. And that's when the addiction issue came in as well. Eric was actually one of my favorite characters to write. I really, the addiction issues that come up and what leads a person to have an addiction, I did a lot of research to try to get it as accurate as possible. So I hope I did it, but I did really like, they're very protective of each other in a weird way, because Hope's the younger sister, and yet she's taking care of Eric. And Eric wants to protect his sister, especially when he finds out what's going on, but he's just incapable because of what he's going through.
I think, the research definitely comes through because these characters are very, very believable, and someone who's struggling to, identify herself. She's a teenage girl, and that's one of those things that happens at that time in our lives. We're trying to figure out who we are, and so she goes on this journey to find herself.
Yeah, and as you know in the book, Hope writes poetry, and that's how she sort of figures out and works through the problems. So her poems are interspersed throughout the book, and that's one way that she copes. But she also makes some really bad choices, which are a result of her desperation, because she's really looking for a way to fit in and to find healing.
It's interesting that you say that's how she copes, because the poetry is how Hope copes, and the addiction is really how Eric is coping with his situation as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that was one of the themes that I was kind of trying to work through as I wrote the book, was how do people cope, especially teenagers, right? So we see a lot of problems that teenagers face on a daily basis, and some people know just innately how to cope in a healthy way, but other people don't, and so that's kind of what leads to this story.
Especially as teenagers, right? Because they're trying to figure themselves out, and that coping piece is a huge part, because we're seeing more and more that with teenage suicides, with all this cyber safety type of things that are happening, kids aren't coping as well as it seems like they used to.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with that. I think another piece to it is that parents don't understand what their children are going through, because we're not as cyber literate as our children are. So we don't know the backdoor bullying that is going on for our young people. And that puts parents at a really big disadvantage. So children don't necessarily know how to cope with it because they don't have a role model that has ever explained it to them. So, I mean, that's part of writing a book like this, is hopefully children can see that there is a different way. Not to give any spoilers, but things are hopeful at the end. They do find ways through their problems.
Yeah. No, it was a very well-written book, and I thought that the characters really came alive and really brought a personality to these kinds of topics that we see in the news. We see the headlines. We know that it's out there. There's huge talk about bullying and those kind of issues at schools, but this is like having a little glimpse into what it's like to be a teenager in these times. So thank you very much for taking the time to share with me.
Thank you, Dina, so much.